and gentlemen. My name is LaFrance. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about how to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation, also known as CPR. So according to heart.org, effective bystander CPR provided immediately after sudden cardiac arrest can double or triple a victim's chance of survival, but only 32% of cardiac arrest victims get CPR from a bystander. So we never know when we're going to be a victim of cardiac arrest, or we never know when someone else around us might be a victim of cardiac arrest. So it'd be really helpful to know CPR, because I know all of us would hope that if we were in that situation, somebody else would administer the CPR to us. So my grandfather passed away from heart disease, and it would have been nice to imagine that he could have been saved by a bystander who knew CPR. So knowing how to do CPR obviously is very important, and there are 4 steps you need to know CPR, and they are assess and prepare, compression, breathing, and repetition. I'm going to take a step-by-step through how to perform CPR now. So the very first thing a person needs to do when considering whether they should administer CPR is assess and prepare. So first you need check for signs of cardiac arrest. So CPR.heart.org states that cardiac arrest is an electrical malfunction in the heart that causes an irregular heartbeat and disrupts the flow of blood to the brain, lungs, and other organs, and is the leading cause of death. So there's a few symptoms of cardiac arrest. The first being hypoxic seizures. So usually these are mistaken for epileptic seizures, but the body tends to seize up when there's a lack of oxygen. So that's one thing you want to look out for. Another thing you want to look out for is agonal breathing. So per heartforathletes.org, agonal breathing is the body's failed attempt to breathe without cerebral coordination. So essentially the body's trying to take in breaths, but it's not doing it successfully. So it's important to not mistake this with an actual successful breath, and you do this by looking at the chest. If the chest fully rises and falls, then you know they're taking a successful breath. But if they're gasping for breath and their chest is not rising and falling, then the oxygen is not going into them. Another thing you need to do is check the scene and prepare for the administration of aid. So make sure the scene is safe. Tap on the person, ask them if they're okay. If they're not okay, either you or get someone else to call 911 and have someone look for a defibrillator. And if there's no defibrillator, then it's time to start administering the CPR. So the next thing you want to do is open up their airway by laying the person flat on their back. And then you want to tilt the head back slightly and lift the chin like this right here in the illustration. And then you also want to check for breathing. So redcross.org states that you should listen carefully for no more than 10 seconds for sounds of breathing, and if not breathing, then continue. You don't want to waste too much time. So now that we've assessed the situation, we can go on to the next step, which would be compressions. So you want to position yourself for compressions. You want to kneel next to the person, next to their neck and shoulder, like so. And then you want to place the heel of one hand over the center of the person's chest, in between the nipples, this. And then you want to place the other hand over it and interlock the fingers. And you want to keep your elbows straight and position your shoulders directly above your hands, just like this. Next, you start compressions. Use your upper body weight. Make sure you use your entire upper body weight and not just your arms. And make sure you push straight up and down to the chest. According to mayoclinic.org, you want to compress the chest at least 2 inches deep, but no more than about 2.4 inches, because you don't want to damage any internal organs or cause any other kind of physical repercussions. Ensure that the chest fully recoils. So make sure that when you're doing compressions, that when you come up, you take your weight completely off the chest while still keeping your hand on the chest. And impulsecpr.com states that full recoil is required so the blood can refill the heart's chambers between compressions. So it's important that you completely bring your weight off, that way the blood can flow back into the heart. So EMSsafetyservices.com states that it's important to minimize interruptions because it takes many consecutive compressions to achieve the blood flow to the brain. So the less you compress, the less blood is flowing through the body. And make sure you maintain a tempo of 100 beats per minute, and usually a good tempo reference is Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. Now that we have talked about the basics of compressions, we can speak about rescue breaths. So it's now time to start implementing rescue breaths. So with the airway open, you want to pinch the nostrils, like so. And then you want to create a seal by putting your mouth over their mouth. And then obviously you give the rescue breath. So you give the first rescue breath, and that lasts about 1 second. And if you see the chest rise and fall, then you administer the second rescue breath, and then keep on going with compressions. But if after the first rescue breath you do not see the chest rise and fall, then it's important to reposition the head like that, and then administer the second rescue breath, and then continue with compressions. And then make sure you repeat these steps. 30 chest compressions followed by 2 rescue breaths is considered 1 cycle. So be careful not to provide too many breaths or to breathe with too much force, because this can cause different physical repercussions. And resume chest compressions to restore the circulation. And keep on going until the person shows a sign of movement or until medical experts arrive. You never know when CPR assistance might be needed. It's better to be prepared than to be unprepared. Preparation, assessment, compression, breathing, and repeating are all vital steps to performing CPR. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Benjamin Franklin, which talks about being prepared, and it is, by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Thank you.